Hi, my name is Erica Merrill, and I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. I'm very excited to have with us today Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She owns a real estate and family law firm in the Worcester area. She and her team are fantastic. We are very fortunate to have her with us every week discussing topics that save us lots of money in the future. So, welcome to the show today, Nicole.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. And today we're talking about a very interesting topic. And I'm sure we've all been there or can at least know what it feels like to go through a divorce. You've got a major asset like a house, and you can either pay half or you can sell it, and you don't want to give your ex-spouse money. And I mean, is this a common situation?
It's very common. The problem is really as soon as they know you want whatever that asset is, oh, now the gloves are off and now both of you want that asset, whatever it is. And that becomes even more enticing. So from my perspective, I always kind of go, lay low. And there's always one of my clients that go, no, I need to have this. And I'm like, okay. And the more you start showing that you need it and you want it, the more they start digging in their heels. So it becomes even more of a conflict than it would have been originally.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like kids at this point. And a lot of people do revert to their childhood when they're going through a divorce.
Absolutely correct.
So what are some of the assets we're talking about? I mean, I mentioned a house. I know someone who went through a terrible fight over a lawnmower. I mean, you just hear about these little things and it gets crazy. Like, what are the craziest things that people have fought over?
I think the craziest, well, I don't know about craziest, the saddest thing is always pets. I think that's the hardest one to fight over because, I had a case and I have mentioned this before and I'll keep mentioning it because it still eats me to this day. And that was 20 plus years ago, where we fought over a dog. And the moment, the husband got the dog, he euthanized and he did it on purpose. And I went, we just spent all this money and you euthanized the dog that we fought over, and it was just disgusting. That was obviously his entire motive. So that's kind of the thing that really sticks with me and it hurts my heart, if you will, when I think about things like that. But people fight over petty stuff and they'll fight over something like you said, like the lawnmower that's $500. And I'm going, you do know how much I am an hour, right? That's
Right,
really
you
not
could
cost
buy
effective.
5 more lawnmowers if you just, like, drop this now. I mean, I actually that pet example, I actually know somebody, I'm not gonna say who, but somebody close to me that loved their dogs, fought over the dogs, and the second he got the dogs, actually, I think that it was before everything was settled, gave the dogs to a golden rescue because he knew it would kill the other. Didn't kill them though. He
Well,
actually loved the dogs too. I mean, and so just very sad.
I have questions about whether or not he loved the dogs. Just saying, because you just don't do that. They didn't deserve it. The dogs didn't deserve it. And now, at least in that particular case, maybe the person could have gone back and got him and paid for the rescue. But again, why go through all of that? Um, just stopping the vindictiveness. I mean, we fight over obviously retirement accounts. We fight over, you know, pensions, and those are the big ticket items. And then we would fight over cash. Obviously we fight over houses, we fight over timeshares, which is always a fun thing because we're always going, really, how much you think that really is worth? um, and most people are fighting to get rid of the timeshare. But we fight over cars. I mean, it unfortunately it's an endless number of lists that I could go through. We could be here for the next 25 days plus, going through all the things. But those are kind of the big ticket items that most people are drawn to.
So what do you suggest? I mean, you're heading for a divorce. You've heard the horror stories. You've got something that you want, or you want to stay in your place and you don't have enough money to keep the property. Are there options?
There could be. I mean, it really kind of depends on what other assets you have. Is there something else that he would like? that he doesn't know that you're willing to give away. So again, it's all about that leverage. Is there something of equal value? Maybe it's, hey, look, I have to let you keep your pension, but you let me keep the house. So there's different ways that we can formulate it, because again, at the end of the day, the judge would just wants to see, is it an equitable resolution? And equitable is not equal, it's equitable, is in the ballpark of being fair. And so they're going to look at the circumstances, how long you've been married, what's been going on, who's the assets belong to, all of those things to make that determination. So it really boils down to, again, what do I have that I can give to this other individual that is equal, at least in mind, not necessarily in value.
And does that work?
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it is very successful. Other times people are like, yeah, I know what your game is and I know how to play it and I'm going to play that game well too. So again, depends on how verbose you are with, I want this asset. The more you dig your heels in, the more they're going to go, no, I'm not doing it to you. Just out of spite. Again, that dog that I just killed, that's me. So you have that mentality and you have those people out there that's exactly what they're doing. They're just using a different forum. You have a lot of narcissists that exactly that's what they're going to do because they're right. And you're wrong because you're not them, right? So again, depends on the personality of the person you're dealing with, depends on how well they know how attached you are to this item.
Well, I mean, this is really good information. So, do you have like a checklist of what we need to know about this particular topic? If you're, I mean, I think the house is probably the biggest one that people fight over. Um, but I mean, I know they fight over children too, but like a big expensive asset. You're living there. You're gonna have to try to go rent somewhere if you get kicked out. I mean, do you try to find like you have to your whole thing is you have to refinance for the whole amount, right? And then you're going to have to find a way to do that, whether it's getting someone to co-sign or finding other assets that you can put in. I mean, I'm not sure. Like what do people do?
Yeah, and I think, the house is the biggest issue, mainly because it's where the kids grew up. It's where all my fond memories are. It's because we chose this school because they're in this school district. It's because my parents live down the street and they're now able to come over and babysit. So I have a built-in babysitter. It's all these reasons that people become emotionally attached. In addition to, I really don't want to move and what the hell, that kind of a mentality. But it's usually that emotional connection for one reason or another. Then it really boils down to, do you have the money? Because it's at least about getting the amount for the existing loan, and then it's giving them a portion of that in addition to. So let's say, for example, the house is worth $400,000 and the existing mortgage is 200,000, and there's no other assets because I like easy work, right? So you're going to have to come up with a mortgage for $300,000 and pay your ex $100,000 and keep the existing mortgage 200,000. If you don't qualify for a $300,000 mortgage, that's where you're really going to go back to, okay, maybe I qualify for a HELOC, or maybe I can have somebody co-sign a second mortgage, or. And so you really have to kind of come up with all those creative ors. Maybe it's that you go, okay, I can't come up with that right now, but I know I have to clear up this one debt, and I'm only going to clear up that one debt in the next 6 months. So can I have a year to refinance? So there's a lot of ways that we can finagle. But again, in that scenario, you still have to somehow come up with that extra $100,000. And unless you have it in some other cash format, you're not going to have the ability to do that. Now, obviously, if you have $100,000 like in the bank account, great, give them the $100,000 and you'd only have to refinance your house for that same $200,000. But if you don't have it in a bank account, you might have it in a retirement account. But if you're not of retirement age, or you can't take out a full loan for $100,000 because most people don't have that much in there, then again, you're going to go back to what other means, how can I get this money to him? Maybe you have stock options at your company. Maybe you know you're going to be getting a end of year bonus and it's always in the amount of $50,000. Maybe there's some other things. Again, maybe you know you're getting an inheritance and somebody just happened to pass away and you need to wait for that to come to fruition. So there's a lot of different ways that we can come up with it. But at the end of the day, it boils down to you're still going to have to pay them that amount of money. The question is, how do we do it? And more importantly, is the other party willing to wait whatever duration it's going to take?
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Um, I've even heard of people being allowed to stay in the house until the kids graduate and then they sell it and they split the profits then. I mean, do you ever see that?
I have. I've seen that a number of times. The court doesn't like it, but the court will accept it. So I've had people where the kids are, 8 and 10, and we're giving them another 10 years. And the court's going, "Are you sure?" Um, and then the problem becomes, is that person going to pay that mortgage during that 10 years? What if they miss a mortgage payment? How many times are you going to let them miss a mortgage payment because they're on your credit? It's a joint asset, joint mortgage. And now it's affecting you. Are you going to want to buy a house in that 10 years because now your debt to income ratio is too much? So we really have to look at all the factors. If you're the person that's willing to do this and willing to give your spouse that time, what are the ramifications? All too often people are like, I absolutely, the kids need to stay in their home. It's their home. Great, I get that. Let's talk about how that it's actually going to affect you, because people don't understand. They're like, well, wait a minute, what do you mean I can't buy a house for the next 10 years? Well, your house is mortgaged and you've already got a loan for 200,000, but that's not my responsibility. Well, in the eyes of the credit bureau, it is. So again, you have to look at how that's really going to impact you over that period of time. Sometimes does it happen? Absolutely. I have lots of clients that do that, but they need to do a cost analysis and find out if it really works for them in addition to working for their family.
I mean, that's really great information because, I mean, honestly, you want to be able to stay in your school district. And if your kid's in elementary school, that's an even smaller area that you can move to. And sometimes there's not apartments or houses to rent, depending on where you are and what kind of town it is. When you have kids that are in high school or middle school, there's a lot more options. So thankfully we're moving up to middle school. but I mean, you never know. I feel like the age range, and you can tell, and I know this is a little off topic, but what age are the kids when the people usually try to get a divorce? I think it's by 5 or 6. I don't know. Kids are tough.
You know that I have a set number that's majority. I mean, I think they're all over the board. I have people that are doing it when they're infants and saying, there's no way I'm surviving another 15 years of this. I have people that, I think the average maybe around 10-ish. But I also have a lot of people that are, 16 and 15, and we're almost there, but we're not quite there. And then obviously people that are graduated college. I actually probably have less people in the 3 to 7 year range is probably the least amount.
Really? Because those first 5 years are rough.
Well,
I'm just
apparently
kidding.
they suffer through it and they work a little bit harder, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, whatever works for you. Um, so what if anything do we have left to cover on this topic? Are there warnings? Is there a way to prepare? I mean, I know some people, like, the divorce just whacks them in the face and they had no idea it was coming. They don't know what their assets are. They don't know what's in the bank. They don't know what's in. I mean, it can get pretty crazy and overwhelming when you're trying to first go through all of that information and find out even what's on the table to divide. Um, what do you suggest for people that are starting to go through this process of dividing their record collections and the rest of that?
I think it really boils down to, again, let's get a clear record. We have to start with a clear record. And then we have to start with, is that clear record untouched, unscathed? Or has there been dwindles and dwindles and dwindles being taken out? And this has been a planned thing by your ex for several years, and you're going, where'd $200,000 go? And it's just because we're siphoning, $2,000 a month and a little $2,000 and then $2,000. And so, again, you're kind of looking at that. So again, we have to look at what we have today, what we should have today, which may or may not be the same. And then if we have that, what is important to the ex that I can leverage? What do I have to leverage? And if I don't have anything to leverage, and we only have that one asset, which happens to be the house, who can I ask to co-sign with me? Who can I ask to make this happen? Because if not, it's going to boil down to the house being sold. And unfortunately, the children and you will be displaced. And it's not great. It's not a perfect system, but if there's equity, it's going to be a displacement unless we can come up with some creative person or that godfather of yours that really wants to help you out.
And then there are always the bills to get the divorce. So, I mean, it's more expensive than the wedding, that is for sure. So I guess consider that when you're going in. But yeah, I mean, this has been a fantastic interview, a lot of good information on getting prepared to divide that asset and try to find the means to do it. And yeah, I wish everybody a lot of luck. And if you don't want to just rely on luck, give Nicole and her team a call because they're fantastic. They've done this before. They've got checklists that they can go over. They've got information to help your case specifically. And I personally have never made a better decision than to go with Nicole. So thank you so much, Nicole. We really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Have a great weekend, everybody.